Okay. So we're actually recording. All right. Okay. Krista that just joined us. All right, so we are here for our live monthly Q&A. It is December 2024. This is the last Q&A we have for the year. And so welcome back to ADHD Rewired. We got Brian Entler with us today. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing very well. How you doing?
I am also doing it pretty well. I was I just came back from several days. I rented an Airbnb just for a little recharge time, and I still had a group on Wednesday and Thursday, but I was at this Airbnb by myself, about 2 hours south of Chicago, and I kept my work schedule for Thursday and Friday, thinking I'll be in a different environment, but it would still offer some recharge time. I mean, it offers some novelty time, but I'm not sure it gave me the recharge that I was kind of hoping for. But this is something that I'm really experimenting with right now is all these different things for energy management. And I'm sure I'll be talking a lot more about that in the year ahead. Um, so we got people coming in for our Q&A. So I just want to say hello to those people and just remind people to put in the Q&A box here on Zoom. If you have a question for us and want to ask that question live, just put go live right in the front of your question. And if you are catching this streaming on YouTube, come on over to the Zoom. Just go to just register. The link is adhdrewired.com/events. It just takes a second to register, and we'll hopefully see you here. But we have a question from Lisa that we're going to kick it off with. So Lisa asked, now the holidays are approaching, how to overcome depression and anxiety. I was experiencing this during Thanksgiving and I was literally having meltdowns. It's a great question, Lisa, and I can assure you that you are not alone in that. I think that the holiday season is really challenging for a lot of people, um, and add our own sort of neurodivergence to that. And absolutely, it makes sense. Um, so as far as looking at sort of and I don't even want to use the phrase basic self-care because I think that it's those foundational things are often hard for us to sort of stay with and stay on top of. I mean, even for myself yesterday, I was at my office after my little getaway, and I literally got zero things accomplished at the office yesterday. Although I did play 3 hours of pickleball in the morning, so that was a good thing. But after that, nothing really got done. And then as a result, I don't know, today, feeling anxious about that yesterday. I've been feeling kind of anxious today. So, is that winter time? Is that because we're being exposed to less sunlight? The holiday, it's probably yes to all of these things. So, I don't know, Brian, what do you do to manage sort of anxiety and just depression? And I think it's something we both actually wrestle with. And I don't know about you, but I definitely during this time of year, I wrestle with it more.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and look at the underlying conceptualize the underlying reason or necessity for the self-care is ADHD. We like to think of it as a something that just affects our prefrontal cortex, but it's also about emotional dysregulation. And these time of years, specifically the holidays, Thanksgiving, there's a lot more information we have to process. Feelings, feelings and emotions, they take up executive function too. I like this is something I've been working on with the folks who come to my weekly planning session on the Alumni Network GPA, and I've been talking about it for 6 weeks now to plan for this upcoming holiday. Is that I'll use this metaphor. If imagine your manager or your team leader had come to you last month and said, "Okay, in the month of December, I want you to take on an additional project that's going to take up 20% more of your time and resources." What would you tell them? You'd probably say, I hope you would say, I don't know if I can do that. I have to look at this. But in reality, when we have like when our family, when all these other obligations come into our lives just for this month during this period of time, many of us have the inclination of being like, I can keep doing everything I do every day and add on all these other things. But we tend to not think of holiday gatherings and travel and buying presents. If you even or navigating, even if you don't celebrate and these aren't your holidays, navigating around the fact that the most of the rest of the world is, and also the feelings you might have about it. We don't think of that as something as an increased executive load of executive function, but it really is. It taxes our brains harder. But many of us simply want to say, "Oh yeah, I can pile on this huge project called the holidays and not expect something to go south and not have it affect our mental health." So that's what I divide people to just conceptualize it that way, that like you're actually taking on a huge additional load of executive function during these times. And we can't pour from a cup that's empty. We can't keep pouring in and expect nothing to change. So that's the underlying reason for the self-care. And what I've been asking my coaching clients to do, or my people in my planning session, is like, what can you pull back on? What accommodations can you make during this period of time? Specifically, just to give your brain a little bit of breathing room to handle all this additional load. So yeah, I think it would be general self-care, but also but make it a priority. Make it be like my holiday downtime. And this feels very, very counterintuitive to many ADHD folks. Many of us are caught up in this cycle of, I feel perpetually behind. How can I make more time for this? But the reality is we don't really have a choice. We're being forced to make more time out of nothing. So that's why I make a very hard and fine, like, what is my self-care for myself during this period? And that can be time to yourself, but it could also be setting boundaries with loved ones and declining invitations, or deferring and saying, no, I'm not volunteering to cook the whole family meal this year, at least not without some kind of assistance. Those kind of things can also be self-care.
I did this year. My partner and I, we had Thanksgiving together, and Thanksgiving used to be like one of my favorite holidays because all my extended family would get together. Um, my side of the family is kind of, I don't know. We're not doing a lot of together things right now, and I've had to set some boundaries with my family. Um, but like honestly, part of why I loved Thanksgiving was I just loved the food. It was one of those holidays that like I love the food and there's no religion involved, and that speaks to I like that, right? And so this year I was like, oh yeah, I was feeling a little bit bummed about like, oh, but I also realized I didn't want to spend the energy on preparing this whole Thanksgiving meal. So we found that Whole Foods does Thanksgiving catering, and it was my partner and I and one of her friends, and we got together. We got a meal for four, and it was not only good, the best part about it, it was easy. And like I have been really leaning into things like that are just easier lately. I used to um, I don't know, maybe being hard on myself about like not preparing new kinds of dishes and foods, even just for general week to week stuff. And I've actually been embracing easy lately because it's sort of recognizing what you need and honoring that is to me one of the most important acts of self-love that we can do. Um, on that as well, thinking about like, it's we tend to have these sort of rehas all the time, like every year around, November, we're like, oh yeah, I get stressed out this time of year every single year. What could you do right now? Right? What could you put in your calendar, maybe beginning of November, maybe even end of October, that actually reminds you of this? To maybe it's a prompt of, asking yourself, what can I say no to because things are about to get hectic with the holiday season coming up? Really protecting that time, even maybe getting on your calendar and blocking out stuff and just says like nothing new. And so you have that regular reminder during these last 2 months of the year. Because I think we go through this where we're like, oh yeah, every like end of November, December. And then because it's been a while since we've experienced it, we tend to repeat the same things because we don't put things in place that cue us at that right place at that right time. So,
Absolutely. One of my favorite framing exercises is the future you exercise, or if you could
yep.
imagine, it helps us process information in a much different way. I would say maybe do a future you. Write a letter asking future you, what would you recommend I do? What the December 10th, 2024 me do for this accepted holiday, and ask what wisdom do you have for me? If you know that, man, dealing with my relatives always doesn't end well, what can I do differently to manage that? What boundaries can I set? Or if leaving everything to the last minute, I end up feeling really unhappy right before the actual day and it spoils my holiday, what can I do? Ask future you probably has a lot of insight about that. So I would say, like, ask January 5th, imagine the version of you on January 5th, 2025, and say, hey, future me, what advice do you give today me to navigate through this? And that's just a different way to approach that. And some lessons, some wisdom that is already in there might come out.
One of the as I mentioned, I think I don't know if it was before or after I hit record, that I took this little recharge trip for a few days, and realizing, you know what, this didn't quite have the things that I was really hoping for, and not beating myself up about it, just being reflective, sort of about it. And so I've had this thing that is, those ideas that are sort of kind of passed through your mind for years, and you never really take any action on it. So I had this idea that has been passing through my mind for years, and I actually started taking action on it. And I started creating a sort of basically an owner's manual for myself for things around, for basically all areas of life and the nuances and the little details of things. Because, it's things like this where it's like we're not doing it every day, it's so easy to forget what works and what doesn't work. So, I created a whole section on, travel stuff, right? And um have it in there like, do not think you can work during a recharge thing, because that is not actually recharging. um because it's like, okay, if we really are embracing life as an experiment, which if I really believe in that idea of sort of life in beta mode, that we need to have a way to capture our results. Otherwise we are just going to keep running the same experiments and then being frustrated by the results.
Mhm.
All right, I want to encourage people to add questions to the Q&A, and so we can answer your questions. But Brian, do you have
And
more to add on
I have
this?
a little follow-up point here. Just the wording of the question is, how do we overcome depression and anxiety, as if we're going to beat it, conquer it, vanquish it from our lives? But the reality is depression and anxiety are probably going to happen. Shit happens. So does depression and anxiety. The question is, how do we manage it and navigate it when we do happen? When it does happen, when the beginning of this, we were talking about self-care, and that is more prevention of depression and anxiety. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, but the likelihood is that we are going to experience that at some point during the holiday season and during any time of the year. Do we have a plan in place for what happens when we realize I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm not feeling so great? What do we do when those feelings arrive? And having a plan, like an action plan specifically for that in advance, uh, can be very helpful, because when we are in those states, we are somewhat emotionally dysregulated. We're not going to be thinking as clearly as we normally do. But if I have a go-to, and I have one of these for myself when I'm spinning out and I feel like I am just depressed and anxious, I like just reading a checklist, like, well, can I cancel something today? Can I meditate? Can I go get some exercise? Just having that a checklist for myself that I've created for myself is really, really helpful. So if someone is anticipating feeling anxiety or depression or feeling not really great, it's a really great idea to have something in your pocket, an idea of like an already defined list of actions or a checklist of what do I do when this happens, when my attempts to mitigate or prevent have not been effective this time. What do I do then? And I don't know. What would that look like for you, Eric?
Well, the first thing that I sort of thought of when you were saying that was something that I do have in my calendar, that right around this time of year, that reminds me, like, basically it's a question that says, how's your exercise routine and do you need to increase it? Because I have found that, especially in sort of the beginning months of the year, around usually mid to late February, early March, that the seasonal affective disorder just it has kicked my ass in past years, like real bad. And And I've tried things like I increased my Wellbutrin in the past. I tried that. That did not work for me, so I had to come back down. And what it really could like I need to be exercising intensely, you know, ideally 4 to 5 days a week, right? And like just having regular exercise, I found during these months has for me has not been enough for me. I need to increase intensity. I need to increase that duration. I need to increase the frequency because it really does seem to help my brain chemistry sort of ward off some of that depression and anxiety that I am definitely sort of disposed to. What about you?
For me, yeah, exercise also. I talk about it all the time. Exercise is one of the key components of my ADHD management as well as my depression and anxiety management. Sunlight exposure. The sun daylight savings time always hits me like a ton of bricks every year. And we like to think, oh, that doesn't affect me now. It's December 10th. It's been 2 weeks since that happened, or 3 weeks, but we're still adapting from that. We're still responding from that. So I would say sunlight exposure, exercise, downtime, uh, talking about this experience, talking about what I'm experiencing with other people, not getting it out of my head and to a trusted friend or a therapist or a somebody that I'm doing, that is a supportive person. Like always talk to somebody about it is always really, really big on my list.
Yeah, I mean I think we all respond differently to different things, and if you're not sure what helps you, then it's time to start experimenting and like recognize that like no matter what you do and no matter what the sort of the outcome of that experiment is, that is an act of self-love, trying things with the hope that is going to help with your mental health, right? And it's okay if you try something and it doesn't have the outcome you were looking for. Like as I said, this last week, I took a little trip to try to recharge. It didn't really have the outcome that I was looking for, and I captured the lessons learned from that. So when I do this again, because I am planning on making this a regular part of what I do, um, it'll hopefully get better each time. Also talk to your doctor or psychiatrist if you have one. Maybe it is time to adjust medications. Exploring sleep, all those sort of the stuff that we probably all of us know, right? This isn't the stuff we're sharing here is not like this, I don't know, new and novel information. Like we know that exercise helps. We know that getting enough sleep helps. But if we're not doing it, right, instead of like, beating ourselves up in the process, who could we reach out to for support or maybe even some accountability? And accountability can mean signing up for a class. Like, yeah, there's accountability there, right? A lot of people sign up for exercise classes because that's the only way that they actually show up to work out. And that's a great method, right? Meditation. I've actually been searching because I used to do a lot of meditation in a group pre-COVID, and I haven't found a place that does it anymore that works with my schedule. But I'm still looking because I do find it super helpful, and I find it a real struggle to meditate on my own. It's one of those things similar to like journaling. It's like when I have it on my schedule or something that I know I want to do, I struggle to initiate the action. But every time I am able to do it, I'm like without fail, like, oh, that was felt so good. That was so helpful. Right. So it's like, okay, we got to understand ourselves. And that really is the only way to move forward is through self-understanding.
Mhm. And I'll just wrap it up before we move on to the next question. It doesn't fit neatly into this, but there's a tool. I don't know exactly how to define it. Have you ever heard of the HALT tool? HALT, which stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And the idea is that whenever we enter one of these states, we are in some degree emotionally dysregulated also. And the idea is if you are hungry, and that is creating your emotional dysregulation, then move eating something to the top of your priority list before you try to continue. The same thing with anger, resolve that anger. Now, depression and anxiety don't fall neatly into that acronym, but here's the question: it's like, what do you do when you're depressed that might be a mitigating factor? It's not as clear cut as hunger or tired. Obviously, if you're tired, you rest. But if you are following that halt thing, when you realize you're just and you take a mitigative action instead of just, I'm tired, I'm gonna keep pressing on. I'm actually gonna take rest. Part of that action plan that I described is like, what do I do when I am depressed or when I'm anxious, when I'm feeling emotionally dysregulated, even if it's just taking a break. So having it be an automatic reaction, like, what do I do when I experience this? And keep in mind, these can be when you reach these depressed, anxious states, because I struggle with anxiety myself. These can also be opportunities for growth and reflection. Take some time to journal, like, why am I depressed? Ask ourselves, why do I feel anxious? What is causing these feelings? And maybe some insight will come out of that.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, worth even just like taking a step back and, I think sometimes we sort of use the word like depressed or depression, and what we're really just feeling is sad. And, and there is a little bit of a difference, because I think that when we're just sad, maybe it is more situational, and we can address more of environmental stuff around that. But if it is depression, if there is a sort of a history of that, you might want to talk to a therapist, psychiatrist, those professionals that really can help you with that. So, the other thing you were mentioning, food, Brian, is for people who maybe work in whether it's a corporate space or they work in an environment where they're with other people. I know during that time of year, lots of people bring baked goods into offices. I am very grateful that I don't work in a space where there's baked goods, because that's kind of my like what's one of my big weaknesses. It's baked goods, and it will pretty inevitably give me stomach aches, and then I get brain fog. So, thinking about like is if you're going to be eating something that you don't normally eat, and if you're sensitive to foods, um, just keep asking yourself, is this going to be worth it? Like, if it is, okay, right? But if you have know that you might have negative responses to, things that you don't normally eat, it might be worthwhile to maybe put something in place that helps you sort of pause, or at least use some moderation with that. All right, let's go to another question. We got Carla's question. It says, I have a busy travel itinerary for the holidays this year, and I'm looking for things to make it less overwhelming. Other than a packing checklist, any ideas for making the travel smoother? Favorite tricks or things that help you travel? So I'm also going to ask for everyone who is listening to maybe throw what has worked for you in this. As we can say in the coaching world, I have a lot of opportunities for growth on learning good travel strategies. Um, but I just think less is more is one of my biggest things that makes travel helpful. Brian, what about you?
Well, yeah, if you can reduce your travel, yeah, obviously, but let's sounds like Cara already has this busy travel itinerary lined up, and that does happen. I love that there's a packing list. The packing list is a fantastic tool that reduces executive function, but I also like to use checklists for traveling that aren't specifically about what I'm packing in my bag. It's like one of the time management exercises that we do in our coaching program is called starting from the end. And what I would do is like if I have a flight and I know, oh, and when my flight is at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, I might make a checklist working backwards from like, okay, the flight leave takes off at 11:15. I need to be at the airport by what time? Which means I need to be on the road by what time? Which means my bag actually has to be zippered up and completely packed by what time? And then just having those checklists and having like actual times right there, like gives me a framework to work around. So I don't have to figure if I'm trying to calculate those real time in the moment on Wednesday morning or the night before when I don't have my packing thing. And this backs up to like, when do I want to have my bag packed? Tuesday evening or Tuesday morning. And that's when the packing list comes into play. But having a checklist for times of like when I'm getting there and like when I need, basically, I'm tracking my transitions. So I don't have to use executive function to calculate them real time in the moment. So like a checklist that gives you like prompts to move through your itinerary as well as a packing list is always a really great tool for me.
No, that's really good. And as far as like, when to go to the airport, I typically get to the airport obnoxiously early. Because I just find going to the airport stressful. Like it's very, very anxiety provoking, especially like having to go through security. Um, yeah, I hate it, honestly. And so I give myself like way more time than is even recommended, because that just helps me feel sort of at ease. 'Cause I'm not a great flyer. Like I just don't love the experience. Trying to think what are some of the other things that I have learned. Um, if I'm going somewhere that I've never been before, sometimes I will get on to Google Maps and use like the street view and start to kind of like look at my way around the area and see kind of what's around from that street view. That actually is helpful for me. Um, Giving myself, if I can, a day earlier than I need to be there, and not and a day sort of after the trip, at least to sort of be able to do all the things that I needed to do since I was gone. So if I'm coming back on a Sunday, if I can, I'll try not to have to work on Monday, right? So giving myself that extra day. It's not always feasible, but if I can, I do try to do that. Um, Brian, do you ever like when you go somewhere, if you realize you did forget something, do you ever add that to your list for like the next time? Do you save lists for travel?
I have packing lists. Yeah. I will do that. Packing list, but yeah, also checkpoints, the like that checklist I described. Yeah, I don't have like a standard form I use every time, but maybe I should. Maybe that's a really good idea. But like, yeah, sometimes I will add things from previous trips.
Yeah, I think on my if I look at my reminders app, um, probably I have at least 10 different specific reminders lists in the reminders app. That's around different types of travel trips. And I find that really helpful because then I can just go through and then uncheck everything that's been checked off and I see everything that's on the list. And I on this last trip that I even took, I put a note on one of the items that I didn't bring that I wish I had. And I forgot this last time and I wish I had it. Right. So it was, that will help my future self where I'm like, do I need this? Why do I have this on the list? So I do find that helpful. The other thing when people travel, I feel there's this sort of tendency to want to try to pack so many things in to your trip.
Mhm.
And, unless you find that like energizing and you like that, you don't have to do that. Right? Like doing one, maybe two things a day, like that could be okay, right? Like honor what you need. I think that is such an important thing that we all learn to do more of is honor our needs, and let go of this sort of whether it's the people pleasing tendencies or the fear of what will somebody else think, if I need to cut out of this thing a little bit early or if I don't attend this one thing. If you know that the sort of the downside of doing all the things is not worth it, then you have to be able to communicate and speak up for what you need on that. Because I don't know else is gonna speak up on your behalf, right?
And I find very seldomly are we inclined to schedule or budget time for rest on a trip. We feel like, oh, we're on this 3, 5 day trip, or let's, for example, we want to like go 100% balls to the walls to get every little in economics they call it udal, so every incremental measure of pleasure or excitement out of this trip that is possible. But if we're not scheduling for rest, like I know that if I don't rest consistently throughout a 3 to 5 day trip, by day 4, I am a moody person. And I actually was very proud of myself. I was at the Chad conference a few weeks ago, and I was budgeting downtime for myself every day. And I'd get text messages like, "Hey, we're going to the keynote. Want to save a seat?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm not coming over there till 10 a.m. I'm going to be in the hotel pool. Thank you."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I found that to be absolutely essential for managing my energy throughout the trip. So budget, rest, and don't wait until you're tired. Front
right.
load it.
Oh,
Like
that's
one of the first things I like to do, I get off the plane. Okay, when am I taking a nap?
nice. Yeah, no, that is hugely important. I was kind of very similar this year's Chad conference. I think the most important meeting I attended the whole time was playing pickleball because they had a court there.
Mhm.
And because I realized, and it's one of these things that I've always known, but I don't know. I kind of thought that I don't know what I can do about it until I realized, oh wait, there is stuff I can do about it. By the end of these conferences, I would often almost be like non-functioning, like because I was just so overstimulated, so sleep deprived that I mean, it was. I've had conferences where it's like I literally need help to like get back to my room because I literally was not functioning because I depleted my brain of everything that it needed and had. And it's like, all right, how many times am I going to do this until I try to do something different? So I definitely I gave myself a B plus on energy management at this year's conference. But the very last day, I went to bed too late and sort of stayed up too late. But other than that, I did pretty good. All right, let's go to another question. Oh, I should put before we do that, some people I did ask for people to share in the chat what works. I want to share what some people said. Um, like listening to podcasts, favorite music. I combine packing lists with checklists for other things to do, like house sitter, etc. All right. So that was from Krista. So Kathleen said, I look at the weather app 5 days for the uh, for the place I'm going to go for picking clothing to prepare my brain. Ariana suggested, say, in addition to the packing list, I make a to-do list. I have or want to prepare the house so that the pet sitter will not find a dumpster fire. And also, exhausted returning future me appreciates finding the house in a usable state. Um, yeah, I have over the last year I been using a cleaning person every week. I used to do it once a month, but I've been finding that like it is just like it's like therapy for me to come in and have the whole house kind of reset. And I totally get that as a thing of privilege. But have in the past, I think when I knew that I'd be traveling, I would say I don't need them to come. I'm like, like I want to come in after a trip and have the whole house reset and clean. So that has also been something that I've found helpful as well.
Oh, and Ariana made a great follow-up point about airport security, which is an executive function challenge, can cause anxiety in the moment. That's like having that checklist. I know, like on my checklist, it's like, oh yeah, don't wear lace-up boots to the airport. Wear casual slip-on shoes.
Yep.
Don't wear pants that, if I can avoid wearing pants that require a belt that I have to take off. Well, I think they're relaxing that one, and also like packing my bag so the electronics can are all in one bag and I don't have to fumble looking for them and all that other stuff. Like that can all be little details that go onto your checklist. And I would actually, if an idea that I have, I'm a big fan of journaling, not because it brings up a lot of insights, and sometimes I might like write a paragraph or do like a little free journaling exercise, like my trip, how I want this trip to go. Like I'm going to go to the airport, do this, and like insights will jump out at you. If you have too much on your plate, they might jump out at you while you're writing this narrative statement. If it doesn't sound realistic, or memories of, oh, remember that last time when I got like security was a hassle and I was, I took off my shoes and I was wearing the socks I didn't want to show to the public and it freaked me out a little bit and I got stressed. Like that, those kind of insights that you don't necessarily think about will pop out if you actually try writing out or journaling a little narrative statement of like how I want this process to go, how my trip. uh
One other thing that I didn't mention here, I think I mentioned it in the past though, that I've been doing for years, and I would encourage anyone who feels like they would benefit from it to do it. When you get to your terminal, tell the person at the front desk at the terminal that you would like to board with passengers with disabilities because you need extended time. Because I don't know about you, I it takes me a comically long amount of time to get settled in my seat. Like I'm, digging through my bag, looking for where I want and stuff. And like I'll get up. I mean, so I'm like, you know what? I'm doing everybody else a favor to let me get on the plane early so I'm not getting in everybody's way. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right. Krista asks, what strategies would you recommend for getting re-engaged in the new year, recovering from the holidays? That's a good question. I'm trying to think what do I do to sort of re-engage? I definitely know what you're kind of talking about with that. Like you kind of put work aside for a bit, focusing on family, and then shifting back to kind of the regular routine. Um, Maybe part of it is if you can, those first couple days back, try not to schedule too much. Right? Sort of give yourself a little space to have that day or two at work where you are kind of maybe unproductive and just sort of getting yourself settled. Um, definitely, if you know this is a pattern, I would encourage you to leave yourself that trail of crumbs to remind yourself of things that you were working on. So it's easier to kind of get back re-engaged with things. Um, I don't know, Brian, what about you? What do you think?
Well, you beat me to the punch. I was going to point out breadcrumbing, which is one of the principles we talk about in our coaching program is okay, when we know we're wrapping something up, and I guess in a larger sense, when we're wrapping up this year and there's going to be some kind of break there, because this is one of the things I always caution my coaching clients about is like, we all like to think that that week between Christmas and New Year's, even if they're not your holidays, is going to be, oh, that's so much free, productive time. I would I would recommend examining that assumption and allowing for the fact that maybe that is just rest time that we all need. But breadcrumbing is like, okay, are you scheduling anything in advance? Like, do you have anything on your calendar in January? I would say set a goal now, a reasonable small goal that requires you to get the juices flowing for maybe not January 2nd, but January 5th, January 7th, January 8th. Give yourself a little bit of time to get back into swing of things, but like knowing like, okay, I'm getting started, I'm rebooting my daily schedule. I'm rebooting my routine, but I have this extra goal in the second week of January, for example. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult, like work related goal. It can be a fun goal. It can be a self care goal. I'm going to go on this trip. I'm going to go have this fun afternoon. I'm going to treat myself to this. But even knowing that you have something planned coming up, like immediate, I find that helps me like gets me back. It's the trigger that gets me back into a routine, or it can be.
Hmm. When you said the word rest, so I've been working on sort of planning stuff for the next year for the business and coaching groups, and one of my sort of core themes that I'm focusing on for this coming year is sort of around the idea of energy management and sort of sustainability around energy. And one of the things that I have realized is that I for so many years of kind of pushing the schedule too tightly with the coaching groups for myself. So I'm trying to create more space in between each season for myself. And so part of my process is I use Miro, which is like a virtual whiteboard that is very expansive. I've been using it for well over a decade. And what I'll do is I'll get a monthly calendar template. So I'll take screenshots of it, and then I import that into Miro, and then I will mark when the seasons are. What I just did yesterday and today, when I was working on my planning, is in between the seasons, I actually marked it as rest. So it wasn't just empty. I actually wrote the word rest and had it covering those weeks to remind myself this isn't just like you know, the space in between. This is actually a rest period. Because that is something that I know that I've been talking about and will continue to be talking about in the year ahead. Is that the importance of rest because I was so burnt out this year, and I really am just coming out of that. And I'm gonna be 44 years old in a couple weeks, and I still have a lot of work years ahead of me. And so, I've been doing this online business for about 10 and a half years. And if I'm feeling burnt out now, like that's not sustainable the way I've been doing it. So, the things that I'm going to be doing kind of going forward are absolutely keeping my own energy sort of front and center so I can continue to do this work in a sustainable way. Um, okay. Any other thoughts on Krista's question? I think we might have covered the bases. All right. If you have any additional questions, please put them in the Q&A, but we will take this moment to take a quick break for the podcast, and we will be right back. All right. Now, I know this is still going out on YouTube. It looks like there are currently two people watching. So hello to those two people who are watching. Um, so I'm gonna in the next week or so. I'm almost done finalizing what the coaching group schedule will look like for next year, and I'm actually looking at shifting some things in the group itself from a 10-week group to an 8-week group. Um, and so I have some kind of cool ideas around that I'm going to be announcing soon. And we are also in the midst of our yearly planning sessions that we are doing in both alumni and our adult study hall community. All of those are recorded. So if you like, yearly planning sounds like an interesting idea. So tomorrow in our adult study hall community, we're doing our fourth out of 5 sessions, but they're all recorded, so you can get in there and see the previous sessions, um, and kind of get up to speed with us, because it really is it's a big process, and I want to just encourage you if you've never done yearly planning to give it a try. Let's see what else. Um, now, Brian, do you have any announcements?
Well, let's see. Our alumni. I'm developing my GPA session. I've been working on that and tooling on figuring out how to expand it, but I don't have a practical application for that yet. But coming 2025.
Okay. And also coming 2025 is I am really hopeful that I will be back in a regular routine and flow of the podcast. I know about a month ago I felt pretty confident that I would be getting back into this every other week release. That was a month ago. I haven't released one since. And I've been exploring the question for myself is what's my stuck? And that's something that I'm just exploring right now. And it's what I am kind of grateful for in that light is that I think historically I would have been pretty hard on myself. Um, but what for me anyways, I keep thinking I did 10 years like consistently every single week. If I'm in this period of kind of rebooting and I'm feeling a little stuck on something, like that's okay. Like I'll get my traction back. I'm definitely not worried. When that's gonna happen, I was hoping it was already gonna happen, but I'm not there yet, and I'm meeting myself where I'm at, and doing so with self-compassion and love and curiosity, and that has always been the only way forward that I've ever known. Right? Beating myself up has never, ever, ever worked for me. Right? I don't think it's ever worked for anybody. Right? So, yeah. So I'm exploring what the stuck. All right, let's come on back from our break. I mean, I haven't even released a one of the Q&As probably since April. I may put out like a compilation thing at some point. I do enjoy doing these though, getting to help the community with questions that come up for them. So yeah, we'll see. We are in a pivot time, and sort of I think it's also really helpful for all of us to question the things we do from time to time, and ask ourselves the questions like, is this working for me? Is this working for me now? Like just because it was working, is it still working? And so I'm questioning all those kinds of things right now because I think it's a really healthy way to do life. All right, do we have, let's see, look at the questions. Do we have any more questions? I'm going to give you all another minute or so to post any questions in the chat, that we can try to answer for you with about the 12 minutes we have left scheduled for this. Um, Otherwise, Brian, do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions? Oh dear. Well, I did put the prompt out to everyone listening. I just say, what is your biggest ADHD challenge today? I'd love to see a few more people. I can't imagine there are many folks who don't have something on their mind that they would like to talk about. But I guess maybe I'll answer the question. What's my biggest ADHD challenge today is maintaining consistency. I put a lot of time and effort into learning planning systems and figure out new ways to structure my time, and then I get really frustrated when they don't always pan out. In fact, they more often than not, they don't pan out the way I want to. And I have the cognitive tools of I know I want to stay in a growth mindset, that when things don't work out, that's an opportunity to learn and move my process. And I've also recently, with intention, started a self-compassion process, practice, I should say, we're involving, self-compassion meditation and journaling and talking to other people about when I get those frustrated, angry feelings that I'm not executing, how do I manage those feelings? Kind of similar to what our first question is, like, how do we deal with anxiety and depression? What do I basically a practice for what do I do when I experience those feelings? And yeah, I'm just kind of stuck in it. I would welcome any thoughts or suggestions, like how do we all do that. We are all striving. If we're here listening to this podcast, we're all striving to be the best versions of ourselves and to better manage our ADHD and figuring out what that probably means for individuals. But we all encounter that emotional dysregulation, the frustration, the anxiety, which feeds right into shame, which feeds right into procrastination, which basically, wash, rinse, repeat, and the whole cycle starts over again. So yeah, I'm up in that right now. I'm looking for better ways to manage that the anxiety and the frustration, which is another, I'm just using sort of the emotional dysregulation when I get frustrated that my efforts are not panning out in the way I planned or on the timetable that I would prefer.
Mm.
So if you give me a minute, I can make it more broad and vague. Hold on.
No, I mean, thinking about, the, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, Brian, but the idea of letting go of consistency and focus on resilience, of sort of picking ourselves, like, all right, we fell off the routine. We stopped doing the thing that was helpful, right? That part where we kind of like, spiral in shame and beat ourselves up for, not doing the thing that we were doing. Like, what if we simply let go of that and reached out for help when we realized that, ooh, I'm losing traction here a bit. Like, does that work for you?
In theory,
Okay.
Uh, I think you're hitting on one of my favorite concepts from one of my favorite writers, Brene Brown, who talks about an idea in her book Daring Greatly, which is a great book, where she talks about the idea of shame resilience. Being resilient to shame. How do we work with shame? How do we turn shame into something that is in the larger picture constructive because it's driving our behavior? That's the difference between healthy shame and toxic shame. Toxic shame shuts us down, we spiral downwards, and we shut down and turn into like this pit of, I know I am the problem. I don't have a problem that I'm trying to solve. I am the problem. Whereas healthy shame is something that motivates us to take action. So that's what I'm working on with my self-compassion practice that I'm trying to get off the ground here. So that is, I lost my train of thought completely, but yeah, that is the thing is how do we deconstruct those feelings when they come up? What could we learn from them when they come up?
And this comes from Brene Brown too, the idea of like speak it. Like you have to say what it is that you're feeling the shame around and share it with people who can receive that in a non-judgmental, supportive, empathetic way. It's we do this periodically in our alumni sessions. We call it the shame gremlins, where we give opportunity for people in our community to share something they're kind of holding shame around. And we do this every couple of months, and I think that most of our community find that really, really helpful. Whether it's the call that you've been putting off for months, or the thank you note that you haven't sent that's been sitting on your counter, addressed and stamped and everything, but you haven't sent it. Whatever these things are, or the paying the ADHD tax because you forgot to pay a bill, or all of these things that tend to really affect us emotionally. When we say it out loud and then we get to sort of experience that, the Me Too's from other people, like there's just something that I find so sort of healing and powerful and in a sense energizing about that, and to be able to let that go. Brian, I was watching your face. It looked like you had either a thought about something. I don't know if you wanted to share.
Oh, that was seconds ago, Eric. I have no idea.
Fair enough.
If only if I had spoken it in the moment.
So AI can't read our face and know what thought was behind that yet.
Mhm.
All right. Oh, this is a heavy question right here that I want to address. Um, we had a question that came in that said, "What can I do if my spouse is hiding medication from me?"
Hmm. This is a question that leads to many other questions.
Yes, 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 yes. Ooh, so I'll tell you when I read that question, my heart kind of sank, like, and like, oh my, like there's a lot there.
I've got a question. Would Philip be willing to go live? And I know this is a sensitive question. but I feel like a little bit of context and information would be needed to make a go at it. Philip, would you be willing to go live? And okay if not, but we'll do our best.
I'll just wait for a sec. Oh, you can't. All right. Let me pull them up then. Hey, Philip. Can you
Hey,
hear me?
how's it going? Can you hear me all just fine?
So far, so
Yes.
good. Yes. So, yeah,
Okay,
tell us what's
nice.
going on.
Okay. So, recently medicated. It's been 2 years trying to get the ADHD tax and get working, finances working right. Finally got medicated. My wife sees the fact that it says amphetamine on the bottle, and so she's like, "Oh, well, you must be a drug addict. You can't have this." And so he's been hiding it from me, and not as in like hiding it like she wants to take it. She's hiding it because she's preventing me from taking it, as
Okay.
in she's doing me a favor.
So what it sounds to me like she's doing something while well-meaning out of concern. It is not based on an ounce of accurate information. Um, So what I would encourage you to do is, you know, look at find some resources that can help her understand what ADHD medication is, help her understand that there are, if you have ADHD and the medication actually helps you, there are more serious side effects to not taking the medication. When we look at sort of like the outcomes of people with ADHD, there's greater risks for a lot of us to not take medication than there is to taking medication. Just because there's a similar or a similar root word to methylphenidate is not the same thing as meth. Like it is not the same thing as meth, right? Like it is the way our synapses sort of reuptake the medication. It is not. It is a well controlled, it is a well studied, it is a well tolerated medication. And if there happens to be a history of addiction, we also know that taking stimulant medications can curb the sort of that impulsive use of medication. And if there is a history of addiction, a prescribing doctor should be taking regular drug screenings, prescribing that. I think that is absolutely a fair and reasonable standard of care to be doing. Um, but I also think that there's a potentially even a bigger issue with your question here, Philip, and that's like the communication. Like she should come to you and say, "Hey, I'm concerned about this. Can we talk about this?" Taking it away from you, like that's her trying to be your mother.
Well, I've got a question here. Well, maybe get Philip can give us some context. What conversations have taken place around this? I mean, even if this came out of the blue and it was a surprise to you, Philip, like it sounds like this has happened more than once. What happened? Were there any conversations that took place between you and your spouse after when you realized this was happening, and how did those go?
Okay, so it was pretty abrupt. It happened. I'm wanting to say before I even took it, she was already like on the defensive, like, well, you shouldn't be taking this. And then I'm wanting to say like within day three, she took the medications where I couldn't find it and just was not going to give it to me. So it's been a real issue.
Mm.
I don't
Okay.
really know what the real recourse would be as
Did
far.
you have any conversations about her belief that you shouldn't be taking this? And I always mark that should word. Did she get, oh, I'm sorry, your spouse, did they get an
Mhm.
opportunity to tell you like why they feel that way? What, because this is something that we run into all the time with our coaching clients is that there is social stigma out there about ADHD and about ADHD medication, that many of the people in our lives, our friends, our families, our coworkers have these unconscious biases that they don't even realize they have. So sometimes it befalls on us to become an educator to make these into teachable moments. So I'm kind of curious, like, did your spouse get share with you why they feel that way or what the basis of that belief is?
So far it seems to be like a bias of, oh well, it doesn't work and it's an amphetamine and so you shouldn't have
Okay.
and anything that I do like after taking the medication is like, well, oh, you forgot something and you're on the medication so it doesn't work, or you
Mm.
know you're doing this odd behavior, you're taking this medication, well it's another reason why this medication doesn't work.
Let me ask you, have there been similar patterns in other areas of your life with your spouse?
Unfortunately, yes.
Are you in couples counseling?
No, not yet.
Okay. So I would encourage that, but I would also encourage you to find a couples counselor who also understands and hopefully specializes in ADHD, because I
Mhm.
have found so often people sharing that um, going to a couples counselor for someone who does not understand ADHD can actually do more harm than good. And I think it's really important to find someone who is neurodivergent, affirming, because it's otherwise it can easily turn into it's all the ADHDer's fault, right? I mean, it's amazing how often I hear stories about that. And I'm sorry you're going through that. That is so disempowering and disrespectful, right? It is time to have some real hard
Yeah,
conversations.
there's a boundary issue there. If someone is taking your property, a medication, and confining it for you. But what I would want to ask is that, oh man, I had a great question. Where did it go? Uh, oh crap. It was so good too. Um, Oh, here's my question. One thing I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but one thing I can say from my own experiences, when you're in a relationship with someone, a long-term relationship, especially something that is intimate, like a spousal relationship, it's kind of a system where the rules are understood and you understand who the person is. And sometimes when one member is trying to make changes, when they're saying, I want to grow, I want to become something different, I'm trying to change things, there can be a reaction from the other person. It isn't necessarily about the actual thing that's happening or the events or the circumstances. It can be about the fear of change. They could be like, I don't understand what this is, but it feels scary to me emotionally. And they can act out in ways, they can come out sideways as behaviors that don't seem directly linked to that. So if somebody's like, I don't under this feels weird, and I don't want to, and I'm speaking in the general in a hypothetical model because I've seen this in my own relationships. When people say, oh, I'm discovering something new about myself, I'm changing something about myself, that can feel intimidating to somebody else on an emotional level. And it may not really be about the medication or ADHD at all. It can be about somebody saying, oh, I'm doing something that changes my identity or your understanding of who I am. That can be an emotional trigger to somebody else.
That's helpful. It really is.
So good luck, man. That's some pretty heavy stuff to deal with. But I want to
Thank you.
encourage you, like even coming here to ask that question, like you're on the right track, because clearly you are wanting to better your life. I'm gonna mute you there though, because I think you need to replace your the battery in your smoke detector. Um,
I would say so the short term before, if you're going to pursue counseling, have conversations about it. Get your spouse talking about why. And the more times you ask, like, oh, so like, have the more they talk and they have to articulate like an opinion about why they feel ADHD medication is bad or why it's a problem. If it is not based in something in logic, if it really is an emotional reaction, the more they talk about it, the more that will give them an opportunity to process it for themselves. So yeah, start with communication, but I would also say, yeah, this is something that behavior that is also being evidenced in other areas of your life, not specifically about this. Yeah, I'd say there's something else to be looked at. But yeah, communication is the best place to start.
all right. Well, we have reached the end of not just another live Q&A, but another year of live Q&As. This is our last one for the year. Brian, thank you so much for joining us for these. We're sad that Kristen couldn't be here today. She was not feeling well. But we will be back doing this next year. And we wish everyone happy holidays, um, uh, happy New Year, and yeah, just keep loving yourself. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.